The Pro Football Today crew in your lives on SportsGrid. Joe Lisi, Donnie Rightside, Kevin Walsh with you to celebrate this holiday weekend. Talk a little football here. The NFL season will be right around the corner, Joe.
Yeah, the calm before the storm. We had the NFL draft a couple of months ago. Saw Cam Ward and Travis Hunter go. Number 1 and number 2, the offseason moves like Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those are the storylines that'll play out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited for this season. Again, it's football. It's just fun to talk football again, get that primer for the regular season before we open up with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, and away we go. But as Joe talked about, a lot happened in the offseason. A lot is happening right now. We got to get the people updated on it.
One of those key headlines is Aaron Rodgers being a Pittsburgh Steeler. 75-1 for Aaron Rodgers to win league MVP. I don't think many people are running to the window for that number, but the Steelers' new quarterback being Aaron Rodgers does not only come with questions about what this year will be, but it did not answer questions about the future of this Pittsburgh quarterback position. We went on to hear, Joe, that Aaron Rodgers is likely playing his final season in the NFL.
Yeah, he says that now until the season's over, and then Aaron Rodgers will look for some more media hype, and he'll probably drum it up in the offseason. But does Aaron Rodgers upgrade this offense? Let's not forget they had Russell Wilson last year. He got him to a playoff berth, but over the last 6 games of the regular season, including the playoff loss, he only averaged 176 passing yards per game. Can Aaron Rodgers and now DK Metcalf elevate that offense to challenge the likes of Baltimore and, more importantly, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals? Only time will tell, guys.
Look, if you get 3,897 yards and 28 touchdown passes for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, they are going to be above 500, and more importantly, they are going to make the playoffs. The question to me is, will they go deep in the playoffs? And I think I can already answer it. I don't think that's going to be possible. But just back to your point on that talking point on Aaron Rodgers, why can't we ever just get clarity out of the guy? Like, why can't we just get, Aaron, is this your last year? Yes, it is. Or just say, hey, man, it's a 1-year deal. If I play well, man, the sky's the limit maybe for the future. Instead, it's maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So, by game number 7, you're asking the same questions all season long. I just can't wait to see it play out because one thing's going to happen either way. They're going to be good this year, or this could be a train wreck in Pittsburgh, which isn't Mike Tomlin's style.
I got to tell you, the AFC North, though, is loaded with questions.
Yes.
Baltimore, Lamar, MVP favorite. The Ravens, co-Super Bowl favorites. I must have missed something to justify that number. Cincinnati. Did they even have a first-round draft pick? They signed Chase and Higgins, though, so there's some excitement that at least they can put up those big, gaudy numbers. And then the Cleveland Browns. They kept Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
And then drafted a bunch of quarterbacks, and they'll likely still start someone who's about as old as Aaron Rodgers in Joe Flacco. The North is loaded with questions, Joe.
It really is. And can Pittsburgh and those other teams, like you mentioned, Baltimore, that has the best odds in the AFC and potentially across the board with Philadelphia to challenge for a Super Bowl, can they beat the Kansas City Chiefs? That's the biggest question mark when you look big picture about the AFC North. Are these teams built to challenge the Kansas City Chiefs? On paper, yes, but they have questions to answer, specifically with Lamar Jackson, the passing attack. In a playoff environment, can Lamar Jackson win a game passing the football? They were close last year, but couldn't get it done in Orchard Park against the Buffalo Bills. He has Derrick Henry. Right now, I still think they're the second-best team on paper in the AFC, guys.
I love them every regular season, and boy, do they disappoint when playoff time comes, no doubt about it, because the thing that upsets me the most is you have a great team. And look at the defense now. Jair Alexander comes over. They're going to be awesome on defense. You look at the offense, you get another veteran wide receiver, other wide receivers stepping up, becoming more mature veterans here. You still have Derrick Henry in the backfield. You treated him right. You signed him to another extension. You're keeping him happy. Lamar Jackson is fantastic. But every single time we get to the playoffs, something goes wrong. And whether it's Lamar Jackson not playing well or the coach is saying, hey, Lamar, go out there and be Dan Marino when, we were using a great ground attack all season long and dominating. The regular season, they are always champions. The postseason, always a question mark. And I say this right now, I would love to bet them. But I know for myself, as we talk, hover around that button around December, time to cash out because you know it's coming. Yeah. You do.
Yeah.
Well, then let's talk about the actual champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Not really a quiet offseason there. They kept some superstars, lost quite a bit on the defensive side of the football, but maybe the biggest win for Philly this offseason was the tush push not being banned. It was a big talking point heading into these votes that there was a lot of momentum to rid of the play that opened the scoring in this past Super Bowl, has seen Jalen Hurts consistently find the end zone double-digit times during the regular season and with great impact during those multiple trips to the Super Bowl, Joe. The play is here to stay for at least another season.
I'm happy about it, and the tush-push was not the reason why the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. They won with dominance in terms of offense and defensive line play. They pushed around Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And again, it comes down to we're talking about elite athletes, especially in terms of defensive playmakers. If you don't want Philadelphia to convert on a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 tush-push, stop them on 1st and 2nd down. It's ridiculous. It's the NFL. I cannot believe that this was an argument in the offseason. They claimed it was injury prevention. That's complete garbage. It's a quarterback sneak. Either you stop it or you develop plays to neutralize it, and defenses don't have the answer right now.
Yeah, you know what I was actually hoping for? If it was banned, the Eagles would circumvent the system somehow and come up with a similar play where they have like fullbacks driving into the guards and pushing them forward. They would have probably banned that as well. But let's understand this. The Philadelphia Eagles are a good football team. That schedule is really tough. That's what the NFL does here, and their schedule is certainly one of the toughest in the NFL. But understand this, too. Last time they came off a Super Bowl appearance, what happened there? We lost the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. This time, you still have Vic Fangio, which is fantastic. But last time they went in-house, it didn't work out so good when Steichen left. Now you see Kellen Moore goes down to coach the New Orleans Saints, and now you have somebody in-house in Kevin Patullo. I want to see how that turns out right away to see some of those new wrinkles that comes in. Everybody, Kevin, is saying the right things in Philadelphia, but we saw it last time. It wasn't right when they lost their offensive coordinator.
One other thing that this NFL season will have us watching is a rookie class that didn't enter with a ton of hype depth-wise, but at the very top of this draft, there are some stars. And then there's Travis Hunter, which is a completely different level of star in my eyes. He has top 3 odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year. The only comparison it feels like we can occasionally make is to Shohei Ohtani, who has thrown about, less than 10 innings. Who's thrown about less than 10 innings, and apparently that's been enough to seal another eventual MVP. I'm not telling you Travis Hunter's going to win league MVP in his rookie season. To some degree, I'm not sure Travis Hunter won't find himself in an MVP race at some point in his career, Joe. I cannot wait to watch the Jags' first-round pick play.
Dynamic dual-threat athlete will elevate the passing attack with Trevor Lawrence and obviously last year's Rookie of the Year, Brian Thomas, that had 1,000 yards. He's going to step up, explosive plays, and then on the defensive side of the ball, just a lockdown corner. He'll play maybe specific 20 or 30 plays on the defensive side of the ball, maybe early on. They'll integrate him, but I think he's got an outstanding career in Jacksonville, and they got a huge playmaker that should potentially elevate this team to a playoff berth.
Yeah, quick point on that, too. Love the wide receivers. You get the Ami Brown on one side. It can be electric. You have on the other side Brian Thomas Jr. I know you loved him last year. He was absolutely fantastic. Now Travis Hunter. Let me say this. We'll talk Jacksonville later. No excuses on that roster anymore, Kevin.
And again, the stars within the rookie class go beyond that, with Genti expected to run for 1,000 in Vegas. Cam Ward, the day one starter for Tennessee. All things we will be keeping our eyes on and talking about on our show today. But Aaron Rodgers is a Pittsburgh Steeler. We'll talk about that next right here on SportsGrid.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Play playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
If you're betting $50 a pop, doesn't matter. But if you want to bet $2 or $3 grand each side and literally have plus 110 on both sides, not the worst way to make some money on a Sunday night.
Not at all, right? I mean, and that's amazing. I've never really watched this in real time where you see these odds fluctuate with penalty kicks going on.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.
The Pittsburgh Steelers finally have Aaron Rodgers in their building as their quarterback. That has not stopped questions around Pittsburgh, though. This team ultimately moved on from George Pickens. It's maybe why they were aggressive in bringing in DK Metcalf, because they knew they were going to move on from Pickens. They bring in Jalen Ramsey, but that meant that Minkah Fitzpatrick was leaving. Jonnu Smith is here, by the way. And then just incredibly hanging over the heads is now TJ Watt, maybe? I don't know if that's a whole nother bag of tricks, quite frankly, for Pittsburgh to deal with. But the conversations around this football team begin with Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers is a future first ballot Hall of Famer who has not been producing at the level his teams have been looking for around 5 or so years now. Some injuries impacted that too. Maybe it's 4 years if you want to be exact. I think the most fascinating thing, Donnie, about Rodgers going to Pittsburgh is it feels like the thing most people are watching is, will Rodgers be synced up with the first ever time a Mike Tomlin-led Steeler team finishes under 500?
And it could be that way, because we're looking at Aaron Rodgers getting older in his career. You know what was underrated for Aaron Rodgers while he was with the Green Bay Packers? The mobility in the pocket. The originally the side slip, some of those pass rushers here, extend the play, and he always had a great arm. You saw that with the Jets, which is quite an issue. You look at that Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, it's not great. But understand this, too. I do believe they're a better football team with Aaron Rodgers than what they were last year with any combination of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields at that point. But here's the issue that comes into play. You're right, because how committed is Aaron Rodgers? Did he really want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler? Or did he say, I'll give it a run here? Because the thought process is, guys, where he wanted to be a Minnesota Viking, he wanted to maybe be a San Francisco 49er, maybe even a New York Giant. And they all told him no. And it took a while for them to come to an agreement with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care if they said, well, we agreed back in February just to keep it quiet at this point. That's absolute nonsense. But for me, this team is going to win more games than it loses, because that's what Mike Tomlin does. Like the Duck Hodges of the world and the Mason Rudolphs, like they've been to the playoffs with those type of players. So why can't they do it with Aaron Rodgers? But the key ingredient, Joe, I want to ask you this is, you take a look at Mike Tomlin. He always wins more games than he loses. But it says something about you really need to get your franchise started with your franchise quarterback. Let me just ask you, if Aaron Rodgers makes the playoffs and it's a quick exit, is that a success for the Steelers? Because to me, it's like, okay, Aaron, thanks for that. Now we're going to restart the entire franchise.
Absolutely. I think it's terrible. I think they made this decision a couple of years ago when they were 11.5-point underdogs with Mason Rudolph and lost the playoff game to the Buffalo Bills. The writing was on the wall then. Are they any better as a football team 2 or 3 years later now than what they were back then? The answer is no. They're stuck in neutral. They get DK Metcalf. to your point, they ship out George Pickens. It's a great move if they keep George Pickens. And I understand that George Pickens was a locker room guy. He was a problem. I get that. But the issue is the moves that they have made, just they take one step forward, they take 2 steps back. Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay, great additions at the cornerback position with Joey Porter Jr. If you had Minkah Fitzpatrick back there, an all-pro in terms of the safety position, they have 5 or 6 guys now on the defensive side of the ball that are aging. They're at the back end of their careers. Players like T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward. And at the end of the day, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, he didn't step up in big games last year for the New York Jets. Throws 3 interceptions against Minnesota. Can't beat the New England Patriots on the road as a 7-point favorite. Loses to multiple teams throughout the regular season, including Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts as a 4.5-point home favorite. He didn't step up in critical spots. He compiled stats after they were out of playoff contention, and now I'm supposed to buy in. I'm selling it. I think this is a terrible move by the organization, and I'm selling under 6.5 wins at plus 240 on multiple books.
So for Aaron Rodgers, and to clean up what I said at the beginning about him not producing for 5 years, I knew I probably went back a little far. Rodgers' 5 most recent seasons are actually MVP, lose the last week of the season to the Lions in his last ever game as the Packers, injured game number 1, and then whatever last season was, where he somehow almost flirts with a 30-touchdown season, yet he wasn't good for any of the season or any real stretch of the season. So to take it to your question, Donnie, is making the playoffs a success for Pittsburgh, right? No, that's not a jump for joy season. For Rodgers, I think it is. If Aaron Rodgers is just in the playoffs with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that's a job well done. What's fascinating, though, to Joe's point, let's say they win a playoff game. Is that going to be enough for Rodgers to be like, you know what? I got to win. I can end on a somewhat positive note. Pittsburgh will at least remember me fondly for this season. Or will that have his wheels ticking like, I don't know, I can keep going. Is there ever going to feel like a time for Rodgers to stop? And I think that's what makes the way the Steelers operate so frustrating, to pass some of the blame off of Rodgers and onto Pittsburgh, right? Because I understand, crushing Rodgers these days is easy and often deserved. But the way the Steelers have been operating, Joe, it feels like for the past, that's now a half decade or so, has been wildly frustrating. And again, to bring Rodgers in, and we're going to be doing this all again next year. Oh, who's the quarterback? It's ridiculous.
It's like a sinking ship. You patch 2 holes, another 3 open. You patch those, another 3 open. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, are you excited? They made this problem when they had Mason Rudolph, and they went with 2 journeyman quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and both of those quarterbacks now are in New York for the Jets and Giants, respectively. They would be in a much better situation if they stuck to Justin Fields, a younger quarterback. At least you could potentially develop him. He was a winner, 4-2 overall. Yeah. Now they're going to have to answer this question yet again, and on paper, they're not better than Buffalo, not better than Baltimore, not better than Cincinnati, and certainly not better than the Chiefs.
I do think the Steelers fans are excited for this, but that could change drastically by week 6 and 7. And again, the Steelers used to be about winning Super Bowl championships. When did it get with the Steelers where now it's like, let's just extend Mike Tomlin's streak of winning 1 more game than he loses? I don't know where they're going. I don't know what north is for them right now, but it's certainly not Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. He either gets it done this year or you have to move on. That's it.
Yeah, we'll find out what Pittsburgh wants to do. Not the only team, though, changing quarterbacks this season. Vegas is going to go with Geno Smith. Seattle, that means, needed a replacement. They're going to go with Sam Darnold. We saw some big-name wide receivers move around. Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams. We'll talk about some of those other moving pieces leading into this NFL season with you on Pro Football Today.
There's now 7 different directors of analytics for like the Raptors, the Chiefs, where you can see us all like workshopping these ideas in these threads because golf is so ubiquitous amongst gamblers. And so that was like the most popular non-poker forum was the golf subforum. And then once we started thinking about once I realized in 2013 that Brody's book was coming out, I just thought stroke chain putting was it.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
I'm saying I like their odds because I think they're insane at this point, but I do think they are a very viable option.
I don't even think their odds are that insane. Honestly, they won 64 games.
So you like this move for them?
Well, so the odds...
Regardless of the odds, just from a basketball.
Yeah, the odds have nothing to do with it. They won 64 games. They were eliminated by the Pacers, who lost Halliburton. The other 60-win team was the Celtics, and they lost Tatum. Like I think,
and the Knicks don't have a coach.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You want to take that gap year and trade LeBron James somewhere and get value, legitimate value for a 41-year-old player, LeBron James, I still think, in return. I think you have to explore that because if LeBron wants to win a title, we've heard so much buzz for, I think, 3 or 4 years now, Kevin, about Stephen Curry and LeBron James wanting to eventually play together. This might be that moment here. If you're the Golden State Warriors, why not make that call? I think that's something to watch out for.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Back with you here on Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi. We saw some quarterback movement beyond just Aaron Rodgers, a little bit of a, moving chairs between Sam Darnold and Geno Smith, if you will. And I think it's really interesting as these two guys enter into situations where there is some optimism, right? I don't think either team is entering the year where the fan base is like, we're a 2-3 win team, next year's quarterback. I would even go as far as to say, I don't think either one of those teams is maybe looking to draft quarterback next season, especially Seattle, who drafted Jalen Milroe, and they seem excited about what that could be down the road. Could you see yourself, Joe, either Vegas with Geno or Seattle with Darnold wanting to invest positively in one of those guys?
For me, it would be Vegas simply because of Pete Carroll. I believe more in Pete Carroll than Mike McDonald, even though, McDonald stepped up in some games last year. I just think that, Vegas with Pete Carroll, there's more optimism. Tom Brady, part of the owners in the organization, I just think they potentially could have a winning attitude. Do I believe Geno Smith is a great fit in Las Vegas? No, but he's a significant upgrade from what they had, right? And now you're sprinkling Ashton Genty. We know that Pete Carroll wants to run the football, more offensive balance. That's what he had, especially when Russell Wilson moved on and he built it and made them a playoff contender with Geno Smith in Seattle, right? So now you add in Brock Bowers, you have Jacoby Myers and the free agent moves that they have done. I think they're in a better situation this year than they were last year. Does that mean they're going to challenge for an AFC West title? No, but they could potentially, if everything hits right, maybe challenge for a wild card, but at best, I think they're a 7 or an 8 win football team this year.
Yeah, I don't want to invest in either one of them. Do I feel more confident in either one? Let's just say the Sam Darnold move I thought was interesting going to Seattle, but also Seattle getting a draft pick back for Geno Smith, who I didn't want any part of, and probably Seattle didn't want to either, only to go down with Pete Carroll for the Raiders. But let's focus on what we're supposed to get here out of the Oakland Raiders. Because the process for me, and sometimes I'm unfair when I try to judge things. It's like you're either building for a championship or you should be tearing things down. Now, granted, general managers want to keep their jobs, head coaches want to keep their jobs, players want to keep their jobs, and fans just want to believe at the beginning of a season, hey, you know what, it might not end in the Super Bowl, but at least give me some fun. I just don't know what Geno Smith does, because sometimes you look at a division and go, I just want to wait it out until Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are done, then we're going to hit the gas pedal. And the Raiders, instead of saying, you don't have to be bad, but you can play your way into, AOC, a quarterback, okay, let him play it out. You get the second overall pick, the first overall pick next year. It could turn out to be, let's just say, Arch Manning. Now you got that pizzazz in your franchise where everybody's excited about building for the future. Getting Geno Smith means 4 victories, but it doesn't mean enough victories to move the Richter scale to say we can actually challenge for this division, at least in my opinion. So when I see this move, I say, Tom Brady, be smarter than that. But Brady is always going to be the guy we want to win. I'm so competitive competitive. I have to field the best team I can. Don't take a developmental head coach. Get Pete Carroll in here. He's going to understand like what it takes to win and build the foundation up. I just don't like the way they're going about it because I don't see this as a future, and I don't see Geno Smith in 3 years being your starting quarterback. So what are we doing down there in Oakland? Or Los Angeles?
I just think what it comes down to often is NFL teams are not too interested in entering a season where the expectation is 3 or 4 wins, and that's Vegas off of a 4-win season, wanting to improve. And I think the key point is maybe actually the upgrade that Pete Carroll is over Antonio Pierce, even more so than what Geno brings to the table. We also saw some key wide receiver movement. Deebo Samuel is in Washington. Devontae Adams with L.A. Cooper Kupp ended up with Seattle. I'm going to ask you, Joe, about Deebo specifically. Do you think that Deebo has enough to be the number one, push Terry McLaurin on this team, or how do you see him impacting?
No, a situational player, and that's if he hits the ground running. I saw him in terms of OTAs. He did look like he was a little slow, a little bit heavier than what we've seen in recent years. And then I keep going back to the games that we watched on primetime, and we saw Deebo Samuel fail to catch the football, fail to convert in critical situations, lack of focus. Is he going to bring a different attitude to Washington that challenged for an NFC championship last year and has a great quarterback in Jaden Daniels? Again, I think he's more of a role player. And when you look at this team as a whole, it is Terry McLaurin. Now they have to figure out the situation with him, but it's Terry McLaurin, pure number one, and then everyone else. Deebo Samuel could be that role player, especially in third down opportunities, but expecting him to be the player, Donnie, that he was in San Francisco, I just don't
He's not going to be that, but also sometimes a change of scenery does a player well, where you're going to Cliff Kingsbury, going with a very energetic young quarterback on a team that made the NFC Championship last year. There is a lot of hope there, and he should be the true number two. And also, Terry is the number one. He's going to run those deep routes. Deebo has a spot on your team if you can use him correctly, and I trust Cliff Kingsbury, Kevin, to use him correctly.
I'll just say for Devontae Adams, he is clearly the number two receiver, but that's just because of how good Puka Nacua is. That is exciting for L.A. The defending champs, the Eagles. We'll talk about them next.
We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 15.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today. I think the last time we were together Was it after the Eagles won the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Wow.
Like a wrap-up? What a great show.
We had a wrap-up show.
What a great show. You know what? We should insert it right
Joe's
here.
Bistro style. Sure.
With the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, there's always going to be, all eyes on them. Mm-hmm. And for Philadelphia, there's going to be eyes on some really key pieces in a very interesting way, because you're going to see the questions around Saquon Barkley, can he do it again? And you're going to see questions around Jalen Hurts, and can some of the incredible play you saw in the Super Bowl happen more frequently in the regular season? I think the reality is those two things go hand in hand. It is almost a certainty the Eagles will not look to Saquon Barkley to run for another 2,000 yards. It is also just likely the way the league works year over year, the Eagles will not be blowing teams out and extending them the way that they did this past season, which put them into situations where might as well just let Saquon close it out instead of putting the ball in harm's way. I asked this question, do you find yourself more focused right now, Joe, on Hurts or Saquon coming off the Super Bowl win?
Hurts. And I agree 100% in terms of what you said. I think they're going to preserve Saquon Barkley specifically for the postseason to make that run. Now, that doesn't mean 2,000 yards to 800, but I think in the area of like 1,500 yards is where I expect Saquon to be. And obviously, if they have opportunities to spell him with other running backs to preserve him later in games, I think they'll do that as well. But I think this is a breakout for Jalen Hurts. And when you look specifically for Jalen Hurts to throw 30 or 35 plus touchdowns, he's got a 5-to-1 number. I expect AJ and Devontae to step up. They bring back Dallas Goedert, which is a benefit to the offense. And again, I think now that he won the MVP and how he did it last year, Jalen Hurts answered all the critics. He's a complete winner, and I think this team is out and best built to duplicate another Super Bowl run. I love the total, and I love where they are at 7-1. They are the team to beat, and I understand in the NFC East, you haven't had a back-to-back winner since 2004, but it's the Eagles or bust for me, guys.
Yeah, you take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles, too. The offense is intact, and that was the machine last year. Now, granted, they got some great defense. Vic Fangio's a wonderful defensive coordinator, but the engine was Saquon Barkley, and the guy driving the car, obviously, it was Jalen Hurts. It's interesting to me to find out, too, because you lose Kenneth Gainwell, so it's like, all right, that guy was a really good key backup. Will Shipley, they expect to step up, but also, unheralded coming over is A.J. Dillon. He had some neck injuries, but a guy that could give those spell carries where you don't have to always give Saquon Barkley 3rd and 2, run him up the middle to get that first down. He could be the equation. But you know what I started to pivot to in this offseason? You guys are right. It's Jalen Hurts. And the fact of the matter is, the doubt on Jalen Hurts, all he's been in the NFL was a winner. The only thing he was missing was a Super Bowl. Got to one against Patrick Mahomes the first time around, outplayed Patrick Mahomes, and they lost that game. Learned from it. The next season didn't work out so well. Got back to it, and he was really good down the stretch, which included a fantastic playoff run, and that was also an MVP in the Super Bowl. So I look at the maturation process of a young quarterback who's still in his prime and learning how to win. I think he steps up this year. We'll probably take a look at the MVP odds. He's sitting at 20-1. Normally, that would be an afterthought from, Saquon Barkley's going to carry it. So many other players, Joe Burrow's out there, and Lamar Jackson. I'm telling you this year, he's probably going to have more on his plate, and rightfully so. And if he takes care of the football like he did last year, why can't he rush for 15 touchdowns but throw for 30-plus touchdowns? Being serious.
Well, the reality around Jalen Hurts is he's the most underrated player in some circles in this league, because there are still people who opt to make top 10 quarterback lists that don't include him. Yet there's no justification for it. People treat Jalen Hurts, like he finishes these games with 100 yards, and it's all we've ever known from Jalen Hurts. Donnie, you know this very well. 3 seasons ago, if Jalen Hurts did not get hurt,
MVP.
He's absolutely winning league MVP. He was the favorite at the time of the injury. It's the Carson Wentz situation who would have won MVP that season. The difference between Hurts and Wentz is Hurts came back, played in those playoffs, played in the Super Bowl, despite losing, outplayed Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and yet that still wasn't enough for people. So then we go through this season and questions. And yes, they're coming even from inside the locker room of A.J. Brown. And it was the Carolina win where he only threw for 108 yards. So the response was throwing for 290 yards and 3 total touchdowns against Pittsburgh. And that was his last game in the regular season. He got hurt in the first quarter against Washington, and that was that. And yet, that still wasn't enough for people. So then we go through the playoffs. And in game number 1, it's only 131 yards, but they throw 2 touchdowns, and they absolutely embarrassed Jordan Love. And yet, Jordan Love is somehow still better than him in these games. And there's only 128 against the Rams, but, he was outplayed by Stafford, despite the fact that Stafford kept turning the football over in that game. Okay, well, you know what? You guys have definitely got him dead to rights. Now, who's left for him? Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Well, he's obviously going to get outplayed by Jaden Daniels. Oh, no, he significantly, not close, outplays Jaden Daniels in that football game. 8.8 yards per attempt, completed over 70% of his passes, threw for 246, a score, and ripped off 3 rushing touchdowns, because apparently some clowns who cover this league still do not know that those are also touchdowns that are being accounted for. Well, don't worry about it, because Hurts is going to obviously fall flat in the biggest stage of them all. Oh, no! 2 for 2 and outplaying Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl's God's gift to the quarterback position. So what are we doing here? I just don't understand this whole thing. So, and I know that I'm now raising my voice to 2 guys who both understand the value of Jalen Hurts, but it's going to continue to bother me, because Jalen Hurts is very obviously one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the National Football League on a team that's booked as a Super Bowl favorite. And yet, Donnie, when we go through an MVP award, I have to see him priced as the same number as Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah. No, you're right about that, too, because Justin Herbert's supposed to be, hey, you know what, Jim Harbaugh, let's run the football here. The keys to the castle in Jalen Hurts' hand, but he just doesn't get those accolades. It's almost like you would date ourselves, Joe, right? Joe Montana. Did anybody ever say Joe Montana? Well, he had Jerry Rice, John Taylor. He had the best offensive play call in history, an unbelievable, unsalary-capped offensive line, and some of the best running backs. We never do that. No. But yet somehow when you look at today's athletes, it's like, well, how much help does Jalen Hurts need? I don't know. Did he need that much help being the MVP in the Super Bowl? Like, that's what I get to now, where it's almost like the underrated somehow turned into the overrated, but we never got to rate the guy, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Quiet leader, and he did it in college. He did it at Alabama, did it at Oklahoma, and he's doing it in the NFL, and he's doing it at an elite level. And I think that because he doesn't put up 330 yards a game like Joe Burrow, but he runs for 80 or he runs for 60, the guy is a leader, and that's all that matters. And when we're talking about value, outside of Jalen, just as a team, plus 360, I think, is great value to win the NFC. You want to talk about over 13.5 wins? They could be a 14-win football team. Plus 380 this year. I mean, again, they are the best team from an offensive perspective and a defensive perspective, minus the losses. I don't care. As long as you have Jordan Davis, you have Jalen Carter in that front 7, they are going to be dominant, and that back end is legit. With Cooper DeJean and Mitchell, it doesn't get better than this. They're not going anywhere.
The Saquon Barkley piece of it is just someone coming off of 2,000 yards. People worry about the workload. What is the next season going to potentially look like? What I will say is that if Saquon Barkley can get to 2,000 again, which is 10-1, he will cash the 16-1 break the record. There is no way he gets over 2,000 to me, Donnie, but does not break that record.
Yeah, no, and again, but from a standpoint of getting 2,000 yards back-to-back seasons,
probably not.
Man.
Probably not. But I will say this, though.
Yeah.
There are people who are going to look to play that under of his, right, on kind of the McCaffrey angle. Right. Hey, let's fade it. The workload's really big, right? CMC.
One twisted ankle, he loses it. Yeah.
I will say, and this will be relevant throughout some of the other guys that we talk about on our show. I don't like when I bet a prop in a random NBA game that goes under because of an injury and someone tells me, you should have known.
Yep.
No, that's ridiculous. It is relevant in NFL season-long player props. Injuries creep up so often in this sport, and you need guys to stay on track. And the Eagles will be cautious, I'm sure, with Saquon this season if anything were to arise. The Eagles beat the Kansas City Chiefs. What does their outlook look like? We'll talk about that next.
Let's get down to business with the particulars. The Pittsburgh Steelers will get Jalen Ramsey into their defensive backfield. They'll get Jonnu Smith.
All this talk I'm hearing about they're going to trade TJ Watt, that's not happening either. Okay, so I don't think that's even remotely in the cards. All this talk today, he's next. I don't believe that. I think they're going to give him a new deal.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Lonzo Ball, I guess, Chicago, they've just, kind of had enough here. Traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. What do you make of him being healthy? You think there's a chance? I mean, that's kind of the key.
What you said with all these guys re-signing kind of speaks to the landscape of free agents this year. Most of the guys, there isn't that much money out there to be had. I think the Nets are the only team that actually have cap space and can sign anybody outright.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Will Aaron Judge be at the top of the home run board in MLB? What say you?
Judge probably is going to hit 55, 58. Somewhere around there is his number there. So I'll say I'm going to buy this. Aaron Judge will lead the major leagues in home runs this year. Listen, I'm not breaking news. I probably would take that every year. And when he plays these next couple until he's getting up there in age, until his bat does start to slow down.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Philadelphia Eagles took down the Kansas City Chiefs in that Super Bowl, stopped Kansas City on a quest to three-peat. It also just so happened to open the eyes of some who maybe now will start to ask if Patrick Mahomes, having statistics that show he may not be playing like a top 10 quarterback in football, is actually weird for the guy who's supposed to be the best quarterback in football. I don't think it's unfair to ask Patrick Mahomes to throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I don't think that's unfair at all. And yet, when you look at the most recent regular season run for Pat Mahomes, it's not been good enough. The pushback that I always got, playoffs. And then in the Super Bowl, assuming you watched the game and didn't just fall victim to he finished with 3 touchdowns. He was kind of all right. It was the defense's fault. No. Mahomes played the worst game of his career in that Super Bowl. All that luck came home to roost on the biggest stage. So I ask you this, Joe. What are you looking for from Patrick Mahomes this upcoming season?
I want to see that explosive playmaker that challenged defenses over the top when he had Tyreek Hill and could score at any point in the game. That's what I need to see. I don't want to see methodical drives, 80 yards, and they kick a field goal and they grind out a 6 or a 9-point win. I want to see dominance. What we saw in the second half after the game was signed, sealed, and delivered from him hitting Xavier Worthy 2 times against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now with Marquise Brown and Rashee Rice coming back in that lineup from an ACL, you have a playmaker in Xavier Worthy. I need to see the 5 wide and Pat Mahomes chuck it all over the yard. If they can do that early in the season, I'd buy back into the Kansas City Chiefs. I will say, I believe that the division, the AFC West, is much harder now with Bo Nix in Denver and now seeing Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert make it to a playoff appearance against Houston. It's going to be very difficult to see that type of dominance that we've saw out of Kansas City, but I still think they're the team to beat in the AFC West, and they still, in a playoff environment, if you're asking me, which quarterback would you back? I would still back Pat Mahomes in any type of playoff environment because I do believe in him, and that's why he's got 3 Super Bowls, Donnie.
Yeah, the Chiefs are the best team, as you saw that graphic there, 11.5 wins to 9.5 and 9.5. But make no mistake about it. We'll talk a little bit later about the Buffalo Bills, and the reason I bring that up is we always used to like the Chiefs because it was a walk in the park in that division. 5 free victories, maybe 6 in the division that you get, and you move on the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. You don't have that now. You don't just go into L.A. and beat up on the Chargers. That's a good team. You can't just go into to Denver and say, we own the Denver Broncos. That's now a really good team and improving now at this point, and you're not going to get that doormat in Vegas because at least you have a head coach that knows what he's doing and a quarterback that is a veteran. They're just going to go in there and walk over him at this point. So that is a little bit of a delay. But I have to say this. I do like the fact that I look at this roster and say, all right, they're always switching up their offensive line, which can be a detriment. Because sometimes when they get to the Super Bowl and it falls apart, they try to retool and it works, and sometimes it doesn't. We'll see if that bounces back. But the one thing you are getting is, Rice back at wide receiver. That's a big help. Another year for Xavier Worthy. So flashes of brilliance there and super speed on the outside. And also Hollywood Brown on the one side. That's a really formidable 1-2-3 punch if they stay healthy throughout the season. Now, the one thing we also know is Travis Kelce is coming back. Not the same player he was just a few short years ago. That's life. That's the evolution of football and taking so many snaps, so many reps, and so many injuries and so many chances to get hurt here. But as long as you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're going to be a contender. They really are. They will be in the playoffs, maybe even looking at an 11-12 season because, again, their team total listed there at the 9.5 type numbers there. They're a double-digit win team, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I will say I thought that they would take a flyer on a running back in the later rounds or even free agent. They did pick up Elijah Mitchell from San Francisco, but to get a younger running back, I mean, they were exposed. And to Donnie's point in the Super Bowl against Jalen Carter and that front seven, couldn't run the football. What'd they average? 1.9 yards per carry?
They also couldn't throw the football. But
I'm just saying they need an explosive playmaker. You're not going to get anywhere with Kareem Hunt. He's a journeyman, and obviously Pacheco battled injuries, but get an explosive playmaker at the running back position. That would have helped.
Well, to me, to just kind of circle back on the whole thing, Patrick Mahomes through his first 5 seasons first 5 seasons as a starter, all of the statistics, that was the best quarterback in football, along with the winning. But all of the statistics, best quarterback in football. Over the last 2 years, he has not profiled statistically as a top 10 quarterback in the league. That's crazy. And I understand that I was a madman until I wasn't. Because then in the Super Bowl, he got abused the whole game. And here's what's going to happen. If Mahomes continues to play this season the way he has the prior 2, it won't just be me on this desk asking what's going on. It'll be Joe, because you'll be sitting there betting over numbers, and you'll be losing those bets. And instead of being like, yeah, but he won the game, it's fine. No, this time you'll be angry. And it'll be Donnie, who has him taken down in all comfy parlays. One touchdown pass and 225 yards, and he'll lose that bet. And Donnie will be like, I actually got a couple questions about 15 in red. I'm not banking on that happening because I refuse to believe he's done playing high-level regular season football. But the reality is, the postseason piece of it, right? He played 3 postseason games. He was very, very good against Buffalo. He was his usual, not that good, luck box self against the Texans, and the worst we've ever seen him against Philadelphia. There is no reason that Patrick Mahomes... Again, who wants to debate that Pat Mahomes isn't the best quarterback in the league? And yet, in no book is the favorite to win league MVP. That says something. And I think it's one of the most fascinating things going on in the NFL. We'll talk about the guys at the top, a little bit of a look potentially towards Lamar and Josh Allen on this show. All of those things still to come up here. Of course, when you do take a look at the MVP setup right now, where are those odds? It's Lamar in front and both Josh Allen, and then Burrow as well. When you kind of see how they're pricing it, Jaden Daniels a little bit closer as well, Joe, to the cream of the crop in this class. You like that?
Yeah, I do. Explosive sophomore year for Jaden Daniels, so we'll see.
You're not in on the Commanders this year, or you can feel it.
Maybe he is. We'll talk some Super Bowl odds next, but right here on Pro Football Today.
Here's a tip. Let's say you bet big on a 4-game moneyline parlay. Your first 3 bets have hit, but you're a little nervous about the last game. Consider placing a separate bet against the team you have winning in your parlay. You're technically a winner either way. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all. It's
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Since we were just talking Eagles-Chiefs, we might as well take a look at the Super Bowl odds. And I will say, despite the questions that I put forward around Kansas City, it is bizarre how the books throw Baltimore and Buffalo in front of Kansas City. Even if the odds makers felt those teams were better, you would imagine that putting Kansas City as not the favorite would invite Chiefs bets in a semi-significant way.
No, you would, and I was just looking at them now at 8-1. They were 650 prior to the draft.
Yeah.
So I mean, you see all the draft play out, and obviously the books assess it, respect to how some of these teams drafted. Did they benefit? Did they make a move? Did they close the gap on the Chiefs? But you're still talking about a team that has been dominant in the conference. They've played in 7 straight AFC championships, and now they've gotten better. They'll be more healthy entering 2025. Outside of Xavier Worthy, you bring in Marquise Brown now, hopefully for 17 games. If Rashee Rice bounces back to where he was prior to the injury last year, you now have 3 young, legitimate playmakers that Pat Mahomes could attack opposing defenses. Again, I don't believe Baltimore and Buffalo are better until you beat them. And until you beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I can't buy in at a 7-1 number to win the Super Bowl.
You're right about one thing here, because I look at the odds board and I say to myself, right now that I look, the Buffalo Bills, to me, they're better than the Chiefs. The Baltimore Ravens, markedly better than the Chiefs, man for man out there, until they actually play each other, because it plays out that way every single year. And you see, Buffalo's at home, when they lost to Kansas City, it's like, this is crazy. No way the Chiefs then go to Baltimore, win that game. And they did. It makes no sense. But sometimes it just comes down to, my quarterback can come up big in the right spots. My coaches have fantastic game plans, because Andy Reid and Spagnuolo staying together for so long just have that dynamic where it's like, when we get into the big games, we know the right buttons to push. Now, granted, the Philadelphia Eagles handed it to them. We saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl hand it to the Chiefs as well. But it's such an odd way to try to explain it. Right now, if I look and those two teams aren't playing, the Ravens should smoke them. Then when they get into the battle, it's like, oh, no, here we go. Yeah. What are we doing, Baltimore? We never say that about Kansas City on some of those level games where they shouldn't win. They're always in the game to win it. But I love the Baltimore Ravens, but just in the regular season. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they're always going to be there. Big Red's there. Patrick Mahomes there. Come on now.
Really interesting just how the rest of the NFC trickles down towards the top, right? Philadelphia 7-1. You see Detroit, the Rams, the Commanders, the Niners, within range. LA's really interesting. I just need people to make the case on that team without, nobody gave the Eagles a tougher test. Let's not do that. That game was over, and then they weirdly had a chance, and they lost anyway, and it was in the second round of the playoffs. Make the Rams case a different way than pretending that this team was going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't do that stuff, Joe.
No, I was high on the Rams the past couple of years.
Sure were.
I was, and I heard it on the offseason.
Almost got banned.
Yeah, I heard it on the offseason. I heard, some commercials and stuff like that.
Right.
I heard it. Heard a little chirping.
L.A. Joey.
Yep. They're a good team. They're not an elite team. And I'll say this about both Detroit and L.A. respectively. I think they're both going to regress. I think when you look at the numbers right now, 10-1 and 17-1, you could say, yeah, those are maybe the second and third best teams in the conference. And you want to throw in San Francisco that has multiple question marks coming back with key players. I just don't buy into it. Again, I think the Rams are a potential wild card. I don't even like them to win the NFC West this year. I'm buying into a dark horse. It does hinge on Matt Stafford. I know Jared Verse and that defense stepped up. And again, yeah, they went toe-to-toe with the Eagles in a snow type of game where they potentially backdoored it. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Eagles are the team to beat. I mean, the Lions, to me, have major questions. What does that offense look like now with a new offensive coordinator? And again, I don't buy into Jared Goff and this team as a whole. I think they could be a 10-win football team.
It's interesting about the Detroit Lions because they are so talented here, and they still should be good. But if you just equate it to, let's just say, the military, Joe, you got an F-14 pilot out there, the best in the business, with a great machine. Take the pilot out and still have the other guy's a good machine. Well, they don't fly it so good. That's what you take a look at the Detroit Lions, where the questions are coming up. You had the best play caller in the NFL. Now you don't, and I'm supposed to believe that it's going to be the same exact offense, and it's just the personnel? I don't know if I buy that yet.
Oh, it's interesting because I saw a list somehow say Dan Campbell's a better head coach than Nick Sirianni, and yet Dan Campbell lost at home.
Grit.
Couple places said it. I didn't like
those emails. What those emails were hitting you?
45-31. They lose in their own building to a team who lost the next week. 55-23.
They overexceeded expectations, those Commanders. They overexceeded expectations. Nobody thought they'd be there.
Lamar versus Josh Allen. The MVP race seems like it'll be back again.
We all thought that hire made by the Knicks would be big and splashy and can live on the marquee here in the Big Apple.
He's kind of walking into a situation where he's on the hot seat right away. And you don't see this very often in sports, where somebody walks into a job and it's like, yo, you're immediately on the hot seat. Like, if this is sideways by Christmas.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Tony Gwynn had 107 career at-bats against Greg Maddux. Never struck out once.
Oh, that's nuts.
In 107 times. 107. Cam, if you took the modern player and said, are you going to face Maddux 107 times in a row? Like Vlad Guerrero Jr. and these guys, they'd strike out like 62 times type thing.
Exactly.
They'd be like 80 times. They'd be like whiffing.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
5-year contract. It's just, I bring it up only because who cares, Scott? It's just mine. Jaren Jackson Jr., good player. Don't get me wrong. $50 million a year. We all bitch and complain about the Juan Soto deals and the Ohtani deals, and you get guys like Jaren Jackson making $50 million a year.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.